America's 250th birthday is just around the corner, everybody. And with that comes a ton of celebrations. Yours truly was able to witness one of these firsthand a few weeks ago when I went over to see Union Pacific Big Boy number 4014. Now, in between that and its next time through the Buckeye State, normal train action has to continue despite all of the preparations that are coming for America's 250th birthday. So, sometimes it can be busy, sometimes not so much. So, let's go ahead and get into our story and see what we get. We begin the escapades down the High Iron with a visit to the Central Ohio Model Railroad Club on June 4th, 2026. While getting a break from the new layout construction, I would end up catching Norfolk Southern Intermodal 271 heading northbound up the Sandusky District on its daily journey between Rickenbacker Yard in Columbus, Ohio, for Landers Yard in Chicago, Illinois, with a smoke show to boot. Several hours later, I would capture another northbound going up the Sandusky District, specifically during the golden hour. While a symbol cannot be determined, it was a northbound grain train, and a very big one at that. While not too much interesting power was seen on the head end, trailing fourth on the head end was an anomaly rebuild, specifically one of two of Norfolk Southern's SD70 ICCs, 1251. Before leaving that evening, I would see one more train on the Sandusky District, which was a new one for me, NS Empty Coal Train 775, which runs on an as-needed basis out of Hyco, North Carolina, back to the Proviso, Illinois interchange with the Union Pacific, with two of their flags in charge today. A visit to the Columbus subdivision of the other East Coast Titan would occur a week later on June 11, 2026. With plans of seeing CSX's Pan Am Heritage Unit falling through, I would make my way over here as I got a text message from a friend that this train was leaving Parsons, specifically empty ethanol train B658, running on an as-needed journey out of Charlotte, North Carolina, back to the Proviso, Illinois interchange with the Union Pacific. Later on that afternoon, I would make my way to the Central Ohio Model Railroad Club to assist in the construction of the new layout. Unfortunately today, not a lot of progress was made. During my very short stay, I would end up catching a northbound empty coal train going up Norfolk's southern Sandusky district. While a symbol cannot be determined for this train either, I have reason to believe it's one of the ones that runs out of the mines in Shire Oaks, Pennsylvania. This one in particular consisting mostly of ex-BNSF rapid discharge hoppers. Less than 10 seconds to spare was all I had for this catch at the Wilson Bridge Railroad crossing on June 16, 2026. I got a text message earlier in the day that the daily Columbus, Ohio to Selkirk, New York mixed freight train, M636, would have a Kansas City Southern leader today, and as mentioned previously, I just barely made it to the crossing in time. I planned far enough ahead in advance for a situation like this to unfold, and that is how I was able to get this shot safely. M636 made its way up the Columbus Line subdivision, I wanted to stick around for a little bit to maybe catch a couple of other trains in addition to catching my breath as well. One more train would be captured on this evening before I left for the day was a Norfolk Southern northbound empty ethanol train going up the Sandusky district. Unfortunately, a symbol cannot be determined for this train either. My third visit to the Central Ohio Model Railroad Club for new layout construction would occur a couple days later on June 18th, 2026. This time, though, significant progress was made on the bench work, in addition to catching a few trains as well. The first train of the afternoon was a southbound on the Sandusky district, specifically NS Intermodal 270, on its daily journey between Landers Yard in Chicago, Illinois, for Rickenbacker Yard in Columbus, Ohio, with both domestic and international shippers on it today. Golden light sun rays would frame this shot very nicely of southbound Intermodal 276, which was the next train I caught on this afternoon, on its daily journey between Landers Yard in Chicago, Illinois, for Portlock Yard in Norfolk, Virginia, with both international and domestic shippers just like the 270 we saw previously. Another reason why the golden light sun rays framed this train very nicely, as one of the mid-train DPUs on 276 today was a BNSF-9, wearing the vibrant orange, yellow, and dark green of the Heritage 2 paint scheme. Cotton candy color clouds would provide a nice backdrop for the final southbound that I would see on this visit, which was an as-needed job. NS Loaded Ethanol Train 64D, or 6D4, which comes off of various interchanges in Chicago, Illinois, for Selma, North Carolina on an as-needed basis. This one in particular coming out of Cicero, Illinois off the BNSF Railway, with a trio of pumpkins as power today. It has been quite some time since a still image counted as a separate entry in one of my videos, but here we are. Captured on the seldomly documented Norfolk Southern Dayton district at the Coal Road River crossing on June 20th, 2026, was a tied-down Norfolk Southern 178. Assigned to take 178 today on its daily journey between Irondale, Alabama and Bellevue, Ohio was a pair of Union Pacific locomotives. However, the DPU wasn't covered today. The leader of 178 today was a rare ST-70AH from the Union Pacific, a locomotive that doesn't see a lot of attention that much despite being one of the newest offerings from EMD. Aside from the clean aesthetics, I noticed that the ST-70AH has a very quiet prime mover, especially in idle as shown by the following clip. Another still image. Okay. While shopping for glasses on June 22nd, 2026, I would get a notification off of Heritage Units that CSX 1871, the Atlantic Coastline Heritage Unit, was spotted nearby. After a quick drive to the south end of CSX's Van Yard, there it was, breaking its train apart after running on a daily journey between Bedford Park and Chicago, Illinois, for Van Yard in Columbus, Ohio, on CSX Intermodal I-048. Now, I understand that this isn't the best picture of 1871, as there's a telephone wire going right through the shot, and to the viewer that pointed this out, if you understand the story behind this picture, you would understand that I'm not the one that has the skill issue. Take that for what you will, and let's move on. Later on that same afternoon, I would find myself along the Columbus subdivision at a location I haven't been to in quite some time, the Bethel Road Overpass in Powell, Ohio. Another trio of flags from the Union Pacific Railroad would be handling this expensive shipment of ethanol on CSX train B657, which runs on an as-needed basis out of Proviso, Illinois, for Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm going to enjoy most of this foreign power from the Union Pacific as much as I can until the cracked monopoly merger between them and Norfolk Southern gets approved, which I hope it doesn't. dreams of being starved from the CSX action would bring me out to the Whittier Street overpass the following day on June 23, 2026. However, the first train that I would catch on this morning had a trio of rotten oranges from the Ohio Central, and apparently the Buffalo and Pittsburgh as evident by the leader. The train in question was CSX Forward Movement Z744 on its daily round trip between Newark, Ohio and Columbus, Ohio. Given the first sense of normal action on CSX for this entire video was a southbound loaded coal train mere miles away from Parsons Yard. While I couldn't determine a symbol for this train, I have reason to believe that it's one of the ones that operates on the Scotts Lawn Secondary or the Columbus Line subdivision. Before I left for the morning, literally being shoved into the corner, a southbound would appear on Norfolk Southern's western branch behind the pink containers of a stopped 138. The train in question was an extra run of a daily job, NS I-78, which runs on an as-needed basis out of Kansas City, Missouri for Norfolk, Virginia with extra double stacks, with Norfolk Southern and BNSF power today. My fourth and final visit to the Central Ohio Model Railroad Club for the month would come on June 25th, 2026. I received several notifications throughout the afternoon that this train was on the way, and here it finally is. With Norfolk Southern's very own nickel plate road heritage unit on point, ES44AC 8100, the train in question was southbound mixed freight train 18W, on its daily journey between Bellevue, Ohio, for Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I would unintentionally intercept a westbound train on the Scottslong secondary of CSX on June 29, 2026 at the Avery Road Railroad crossing. Continuing the theme of mystery trains throughout this entire video, with this one being a grain train, with a fresh ES44AH on point, and two other units as mid-train DPUs, as this was likely two grain trains combined into one. I thought I was only going to see one engine on this train, and that's why I hopped back into the car, but I was clearly wrong in this case. Excessive heat warnings were in effect on June 30th, 2026, but it didn't deter me from venturing over to the Whittier Street overpass. Passing a northbound mixed freight train on CSX's Columbus subdivision that I unfortunately missed the head end of was CSX Foreign Movement C744 on its daily round trip between Newark, Ohio and Columbus, Ohio. Despite catching the America 250th and Heim time engines a multitude of times over the last month, not expecting to see these two engines at all made it a neat surprise. Still feeling salty for missing the head end of this northbound mixed freight train, I have reason to believe it's a very late CSX M313, only 2 miles into its daily journey between Columbus, Ohio and Avon, Indiana. The only saving grace for this train being featured is that it was equipped with a mid-train DPU. However, off-camera, I noticed one of the miscellaneous grain cars on M313 was one of BNSF's heritage hoppers, specifically the Great Northern one. The other short line that you typically see in this area would also make a surprise appearance on Norfolk Southern's western branch, Camp Chase local job Cameo 1, on its weekly round trip between Valley View, Ohio and Norfolk Southern's Watkins Yard in Columbus, Ohio, with the two Freedom 40s actually pulling a train for once. Despite M313 still going underneath Whittier Street, I came to the conclusion that no other trains were coming in the time that I deemed reasonable, so I decided to seek out the action elsewhere. This search led me to Valley Crossing in Obetz, Ohio, near the diamond of Norfolk Southern's Columbus District and I&O's Logan Line. Sadly, I would only capture one train before the heat got the coveted excessive label from the National Weather Service, specifically a symbolist mystery southbound grain train. Alrighty folks, that pretty much covers it for today's video. As you've seen, it was pretty much nearly a hostile takeover from the West Coast railroads when it comes to the trains that I have captured coming through central Ohio. Although not exactly a hostile takeover, it would be a hostile takeover if the UP-NS merger gets approved, but that's a story for another time. If you enjoyed this video, consider checking out some other ones of mine. Leave a like or a comment down below to share your thoughts. Subscribe if you're new, and tap the notifications bell if you want to be notified when a new video gets posted here on the channel, just like this. Until next time, this is All Ohio Rail Fan, signing off.